Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my 100% walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for Nintendo Wii. At long last, we have completed all three portions of the Song of the Heroes. We can finally return to Levias in Thunderhead, and he'll teach us the fourth and final piece, which will complete the entire song. Now, as long as we're heading to Thunderhead, there are two goddess chests that we can get, the final two in the game. And I did also get the final piece of heart in the previous video, by the way, so now I have max heart containers. There are two remaining slots for heart containers on my bar, is actually from the wearing the life medals in your adventure pouch, so that's why I have two missing out of the total symmetrical slots there. Anyways, continuing onwards, we're going back to Thunderhead, and there are two goddess chests we can get here. Now, their location is inside this little island off in the top left, and there is a hole you can dig down using the magma mitts and dig around in there. There is a cave system underground that has a Moldorm in it. Now, you can defeat the Moldorm. You don't actually have to. You can just sneak past it. And in order to get to all the various holes, you go inside this underground area, and there are two other exits. There's 3 holes total, and every time you enter the hole, it reorients your vision and spins it around, so it can be kind of disorienting and confusing which way you're supposed to go. So what I recommend you do, just follow one wall or the other. So just go clockwise or go counterclockwise and keep digging back up to return to the surface, grab the prize, and then dig back down and continue following that wall. So that's the easiest way to do it. Just pick a direction and then just stick with it, and that's how you can do that. Now, should you decide that you want to vanquish the Moldorm, it's actually, I think this is probably the easiest one in the entire game, because Moldorms cannot enter any areas that are dead ends. So all you have to do is just hang out at any one of these areas where there's boxes, basically like right here where I'm at this very entrance. The Moldorm cannot come in here at all. So all I have to do is peek out and let it see me and chase after me, and then I just back up and then wait for it to go past me, because it can't go anywhere where there's a dead end, so it cannot enter that area at all. So instead it has to go either left or right, and then I can just come right back out and smack it in the tail as it's going past. So you can just keep doing that over and over again and defeat it. So that whole underground area is filled with all these little alcoves off to the side that have boxes, which make it a one-way entrance and exit. You can't go in and out in any other directions, so the Moldorm can't enter. So the whole area is surrounded with all these little alcoves that you can hide in or use it to defeat the Moldorm. Super easy. Alright, so we have 2 chests. One of them is a bottle. This one was acquired from the Goddess Cube that was in Volcano Summit, which is in that lava area right before we get to the Fire Dragon. And there was a Goddess Cube there, right at the end of Volcano Summit, and you can actually get it a little bit earlier by using an upgraded Skyward Strike because you have a little bit more range. But otherwise, you get it during the Song of the Hero is when you can get it the soonest. Now, this area of Thunderhead is not really super available anyway because you can't do it super early, so it doesn't really matter too much. It doesn't really change much anyways. It only lets you get it a little bit earlier because that whole area of Volcano Summit in Hero Mode is available before Fire Sanctuary, but you can't actually dig into these holes until you have the Magma Mitts, which you get in Fire Sanctuary, which is only a smidge earlier anyways. So I guess if you wanted to get a bottle a little bit early, you could in Hero Mode specifically. It would just be a smidge earlier, so it doesn't really change too much actually as far as our whole progression and the order of events in this game. In Hero Mode anyways. So the next cube is actually a small quiver, and that is from the Lanayru region. There was a cube there that was right next to the life tree sapling. So when we were helping Lanayru, and we went off to that little side area where there was the shriveled up tree, and you used the time shift stone to bring it all back to the past so that you could grab the life tree sapling, there is a goddess cube that is on the ground there. So that one is the final one in the game, and it leads to this small quiver. Alright, so that pretty much concludes all of the optional collection-y stuff in the game. I have all the pieces of heart, all the gratitude crystals, all of the goddess cubes and chests. So all that's left to do is just upgrade a few more things in the bazaar, which I will be doing later in this video. So, with all that stuff now taken care of, we want to head over to Levias in Thunderhead. He's just flying around in circles, and he will teach you the final part of the Song of the Hero. So according to Fythe, she detects the remaining Silent Realm, the last trial, is somewhere in the sky. So she'll then give you the option to douse for it so we can find the specific entrance to it. And there's actually only one place that makes sense because all the little islands are just too small in the sky anyways. There's like Thunderhead, and then otherwise there's like Lumpy Pumpkin, but all the other islands are super teeny and we can't fly obviously when we're in the Silent Realm. So Skyloft is the only place that makes sense. We need to return to Skyloft and find the entrance to the final trial. That's all very interesting. It's kind of intriguing because we did all these different areas. We kept going back and forth to the other areas, and now the final area of the game is actually the very beginning, which is interesting. It was under our noses the entire time. You know, sometimes you can only remember just like a bit of a song and you're like trying to figure out what the rest of the song is, but I just find it a little strange that these dragons only remember parts of the song. Maybe the goddess only taught them each a part of the song, though. It was set up that way on purpose, but I feel like it's a lot harder to remember just a piece of a song generally, or like at least how disjointed these parts are, because the parts are almost like hard enough to hear because they're not like full measures or whatever of the melody. It's like ends in the middle of one section, or it begins in the middle of one section, then ends in the middle of one section, so it makes it kind of hard to tell what the song is going to be. But now that we have the completed thing and we'll hear it in a little bit, it's obviously the classic Legend of Zelda song from most of the intros in the entire Zelda series. So it's like very classic, like normal song you would hear for a very typical Zelda song, I guess I should say. Oh yeah, playing the harp, your favorite. Make sure your controller is calibrated really well. The other big tips I would give is that you do need to make sure that you swing really wide, because Link's hands need to touch the far left and right strings, otherwise the game will not register it. So make sure you're swinging wide. The timing needs to be a little bit early, so watch this clip closely, and then I'll give more tips after this. Yeah, the timing on these is just weird. I feel like this is one of the harder songs. This one and the Light Tower, I think, are overall the hardest songs. But as far as the timing, like, it is just a little off. I'm not even really sure why this is for the playing the harp. It's like playing the harp with Kina. That one is on tempo. You want your strings to be like hitting like left and right side, but for like this song, for example, it almost feels like it's a little bit better if you're hitting the far left and right side when the pulsing is in the middle. You know what I mean? Not when it's in the far center, not when it's on the far outside, when it's in between. That's the point when you want to hit the far left and far right side on your harp. I don't know why that is. This particular one seems to work better that way, is what I found. It's almost like trying to clap to offbeats or something like that. It's just weird. Like if you look back at that recording, you'll notice that it seems to like it better when I'm playing super early. When I'm playing like more to the tempo, it doesn't register at all, and I don't really know why that is. I was very surprised when I got to this point in the game and then realized the final Silent Realm was in Skyloft. I just did not expect that at all. It's just interesting that Nintendo chose to have several things that were at the beginning of the game that you didn't realize were here, so you're like, oh, there's something here, oh, there's something else here, oh, there's something else here, and they just keep tacking it on. So it's not like just one moment. They have several different things that you discover here in Skyloft and stuff here at the end of the game, and I think it's very interesting, a very interesting way of going about it. Skyward Sword has a lot of little moments like that, which cool little like nuances about the beginning of the game that you didn't realize were there, and there's a big one coming up that I'm really excited to talk about, but I don't want to spoil anything yet, so stay tuned for that. That'll happen here in a couple videos, and I'm really excited for it. Alright, Skyloft Silent Realm. Now this guy is, I think, arguably the hardest one. It's not necessarily like difficult to understand, it's just tricky to actually pull off. So it has a couple tricky areas. In particular, the tower. The tower is the #1 place where players struggle, in as my experience, just from what I've seen. So what I'd recommend you do is actually go get this tier first, and then go do the tower. That's what you want to do. You can get the tier just so that you're safe and you're not worried about this Sky Guardian coming down. Meanwhile, the Sentry Watcher is just floating around. It just goes clockwise around the tower like this. You need to wait for it to get pretty far away. So what you do is you wait for it to be like right about here or something like that, and you start climbing the ladder. And then that way, by the time you're like pretty high on the ladder, it's like the Watcher Sentry is like over here or something like that. So You just wait till it's like right around the backside, and that's when you start climbing the ladder. And you should be able to get this and then jump down. It's fine. I will say that you don't take damage when you fall too, so just hop off. Try to be careful to make sure that the watcher doesn't see you on the way down, though. I don't think it'll be a big deal, but just make sure that the watcher is like over here or something like that before you hop down. Or you might wait for it to even go all the way around again before you hop down, so you don't accidentally get caught. So yeah, do the tower first. That's my biggest recommendation. The only other two things kind of that are even worth noting for this really is just actually there's waking water. Just don't forget there's waking water here that will rise and lower. So sometimes you'll hop through, you'll think it's fine, then the waking water starts appearing and you step into it, and then that's bad. It's not really a big deal. Honestly, the ground mace guardians are pretty easy to deal with. It's the sky guardians I think are a little bit harder to deal with. But anyways, so that's a thing to watch out for. The only other thing that's really worth noting is just this guy. This is also the trickiest. The other trickiest part of this is there's a box you have to move, and there's a watcher going back, or two watchers I think even, going back and forth here. So you have to just be really careful to pull this box into the right place to hop to this tier. So it's not a big deal, but yeah, so go up here, grab this, and then hop down and move this box over, and just take it real slow. That's my recommendation here. If you got this tier, you have more than enough time to do this, so it's not a big deal. The only other thing worth noting is you could purposefully jump in the water to run over here faster, just to save time. It doesn't really matter that the guardians are awake, because you can easily avoid the melee ground guardians. There's one right here that will see you as you run across, and there's also one up here in the pumpkin patch, but not a big deal. I will show that in the following clips, and it's pretty easy to deal with. Alright, so to start with, I highly recommend you begin with the tower, because I think, and honestly in my opinion, the tower is the hardest part of this entire thing, so I like to get it out of the way because it's right here. So right now what I'm doing is I'm looking up towards it, so you can see that there is a Sky Guardian on top of it, and it comes down towards you. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually walking back and forth between the starting position. This resets the location of all the Guardians, just to show that. Anyways, I'm going to go back over here and grab this tier to put all the Guardians to sleep. Now you can actually get up there while that Sky Guardian is awake, but basically how you want to do that is lure it really far away first, and then make a run for the tower. And as long as it's far enough away, it shouldn't be a problem, but that's the only way to get up there otherwise, pretty much. It's really hard to get up there otherwise. Now you want to watch out for this Watcher Sentry right here. You just want to make sure that's like on the back side of the tower before you start climbing, because if it sees you partway up, its outer radius will totally detect you, and then it will chase you down, and that's pretty horrible. Alright, so grab the tier. I think that these ones are actually called Goddess tiers. The other tiers that we got so far, I think were called Tears of Faror, Tears of Eldin, Tears of Lanayru. So these ones are called Tears of the Goddess. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure about that. Anyways, I like to grab all the Dusk Relics along the way. I actually have more than enough Dusk Relics for the rest of the entire game to get all the upgrades. I think I've even maybe purchased all the upgrades that even require them so far, so I don't actually need any more anyways, but might as well grab them. And one real quick, I noticed right here there's a Goddess Plume behind this bench. Wow, it's so awesome. I think that after watching that how it works is actually that the Dusk Relics have a chance to be Goddess Plumes as well, just like Amber Relics and Goddess Plumes. But that's really interesting. I didn't realize you could get Goddess Plumes in the Silent Realms. This watcher here can be kind of tricky because whenever it turns around, it kind of swings wide. So if you're standing too close, it could touch you, and that's a problem, obviously, because you're right next to one of those melee guardians. Speaking of the melee guardian, there is a tier right next to that one as well, and I didn't get that right now, but I realized it towards the end of this video. I was actually just all distracted at this point because I was excited about that Goddess Plume. I was like, whoa, mind blown. So I was just on autopilot here for a moment. Once you get to the Knights Academy, I would recommend you get to the roof first as one of your first objectives, because if the Guardians are currently awake, it is relatively hard to get up here because you're worried about climbing and the Sky Guardians are coming towards you and it's really stressful. Up on the roof, there is a Sky Guardian here as well as one of those Watcher Sentries. This thing can have, it has a pretty wide radius, so it could activate if you get too close to it. So try and swing wide and grab that tier. Next, you want to hop down. Just be careful. Don't jump over because you don't want to land inside this Watcher's radius. Instead, you want to just carefully back up and then push the block whenever in between each pass. And definitely do multiple passes would definitely be easier. You can do it in one, but it is kind of tricky. Another thing you can do is you can get caught on purpose, and this is because we're going to just drag this box over and then grab this tier anyways. So if you do get caught, it's not that big a deal. However, just be warned that that particular Sky Guardian is very close. Now, if you got a light fruit recently, there's a little trick here where you can hop down over the fence. You just run over it. As long as you land kind of near the light, then you'll land on top of this little wooden platform. So it is a little bit... I actually think it's almost easier than running along the wooden planks because you're having to avoid that watcher right there. It's not really that big a deal. You can totally do it in time. But anyways, going this way is kind of cool because you save a couple steps and you don't have to go through the middle at all where there's one of those Watcher Sentries. So next we want to work our way to the top right of the map where there is a Dusk Relic up against the Waterfall Cave, and then there is a tier over here. Now at this point you can just run the long way. and that's fine, but you do have to go across the bridge, and you might get caught along the way. So one thing you can do to save a little time is you can just jump in the water. Now this is of course risky. You can walk on water in the Silent Realms, so that's kind of cool. So because normally you'd have to swim through this, but we can just run all the way over to the far right side of the map instead. Now this might indeed seem incredibly stressful, but it's honestly not that bad. Part of what I'm doing right here is I'm not using stamina on purpose so that I will only start running once the Guardians see me. So here there's a Mace Guardian. I can just backflip to get away from this thing. I'm more worried about the Sky Guardian. Actually, I'm going to dash past it because it'll attack instantly if I get too close, and that's a problem. So up ahead there is a Mace Guardian. This one started raising its mace. I got scared, so I started using more stamina to run forward. I got accidentally within range after I collected the tier, which is sad. Normally I do that a little bit more careful, but I guess I could have like backflipped and stuff, but I was worried about the Guardians behind me. Anyways, backflip to avoid this Mace Guardian as soon as it wakes up, and then you want to dash over to another tier as soon as possible. This actually kind of works out just fine. In part I was showing that on purpose. That kind of worked out a little bit on accident, but it's a good example. I'm going to head back up there just to show those watchers real quick so you can see what happened. There is a bunch of watchers that they weave in and out around this little circle. So right here they're extended, then they're going to go in, and then they're going back out again. You need to weave in between them when they're fully extended, and then get in there, grab the tier, wait for them to collapse, and then they'll expand again, and you're able to get out. So that's what you're supposed to do, just take it real slow and careful. I am kind of in part trying to show like some worst case scenarios with these Silent Realm videos actually, so I'm kind of getting caught on purpose for some of these actually, just so I can show how to get away. So it wasn't really that big of a deal that happened. Anyways, this sentry up ahead, this guy will patrol right and left, like it just keeps going back and forth in a circle. So what you want to do is wait till it's kind of on the left side. Then what I would recommend you do is you actually dash up kind of the middle of this ramp right here, because then you can get away pretty easily. If you go for the far bottom, I think you're pretty much guaranteed to get caught. I also don't really think the right side is very easy to climb on. Anyways, now we're going back over to the bridge. Now there's a final tier here. I actually forgot to get one earlier. But anyways, you can grab this tier, and what you can do is you can climb on top of the railings on either side. You can also get on top of this roof. Luckily, the sentry that is just next to us, the outer radius does not activate when you're on top of this little roof. Otherwise, we would totally have gotten caught right there. But anyways, that's a nice little trick right there, too, for getting across. Otherwise, you can kind of use the lower portions of the ramps. There's like the railings on either side. Just be careful when you jump off. You can accidentally land in the water, and I've done that before, and it's pretty awful. Now here's that tier I was talking about that I missed earlier. I was distracted by the Goddess Plume, so I forgot to grab this one, but this is my final one. But normally I end on the bridge right there. But usually this part of what's nice about this path is it brings you back towards the beginning, so you don't have to like sneak past a bunch of sentries and stuff. So that's kind of nice. And honestly, if you do get seen, then it's not really that big a deal because the Mace Guardians are pretty easy to avoid. This area is pretty flat, so you can totally just run away and just backflip away from them. So even if you do get multiple Mace Guardians following you, you can make your way all the way back to the entrance, no problem, in my opinion. Honestly, again, I think the Sky Guardians are probably a bigger threat because they're all over the place, and they'll just intercept you on your way back, and that's kind of rough. Oh yeah! So now that we've completed this Silent Realm, we are awarded with the Stone of Trials, which will lead the way to the Triforce. What this actually means is it's going to open up the next dungeon. So, we have the final dungeon of the game, and we're about to go to that. So I'm actually going to do that at the end of this video. For the next little while, what I'm going to be doing is upgrading my remaining items at the scrap shop, and talking about potions and stuff like that, the best ones to use for the final boss of the game. So I'm going to be doing the final preparation, and reorganizing my adventure pouch slots at long last, and so you can hang out with me for that. Otherwise, skip to the end of the video, where I'm going to enter the next dungeon. So first of all, what I'm going to do is replace my shield, because I completed Linneuru's Lightning Round, and the grand prize of which is the Hylian Shield, which is the most awesome shield in the game. It never breaks, it's got infinite durability, it's super awesome, really powerful. So that actually went to the item check because my adventure pouch was full, so I'm going to swap that out and get rid of my Goddess Shield at long last. So that's one of my first priorities. Then I'm going to reorganize stuff in my pouches. Now in particular, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the treasure medal because I don't have a use for it anymore, because we're pretty much at the end of the game and I have all the treasure I need. Like, all my upgrades are done. So I guess one comment about that is one reason why you might want to keep the treasure medal / and or the cursed medal on is because if you're planning on playing the game in heroes mode, which is unlocked at the end of this game, then you will keep any treasure and bugs that you have acquired in your previous playthrough. So just because I have all of the upgrades right now doesn't mean I don't necessarily want more treasure. Does that make sense? So if I keep farming for treasure, it'll make hero mode a little bit easier for me the next time, because then I will already have a lot of those treasures acquired. As far as your other slots are concerned, I still think that bottles are overall the most powerful thing you could possibly have. However, I will say that I think the quiver is definitely the most useful. And again, you can have multiple quivers as well. I do actually have two of them. I have a basic one, and I have one that's fully upgraded, and then I have a small quiver that I just got from a goddess chest a little bit ago. So I could upgrade that and actually have 2 quivers in my inventory if I want to. So I'm going to keep bombs and arrows with me because that's what I use the most of. I don't really use the seed satchel that much, I don't think. There is actually a total of 5 bottles at this point. I have 4 of them on me and the potion medal. And again, if you're going to use potions, potion medal is definitely worth it because, like, rather than having 2 bottles that each have a potion in it, then using a potion medal is a lot cheaper for one thing. You know, you're using less bugs and you're paying less rupees, but also it just makes it last longer for when you need it because, like, you know, if you're going to use a guardian potion, it's all going to be for the same chunk of time anyways, so you'll be using them one after another regardless, so it just makes more sense to use a potion medal for that slot instead. But yeah, especially if you're going to have multiple potions, the potion medal is definitely something you're going to want to have. So yeah, Hylian shield, either a quiver or a bomb bag, whatever you want to, maybe a seed satchel. I think the quiver is definitely be the most useful out of those. Use a potion medal if you're going to use potions, and then otherwise just fill up everything else with bottles. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all of my fairies, and I went ahead and stocked up on bombs and arrows because I might as well. I have all these rupees, and I don't have anything to spend it on at this point, so why not? There's a couple different potions you can buy, the first of which is the Guardian Potion, which is very useful for bosses. It makes you invulnerable for a set period of time, or rather, makes you take half damage or something like that at first, and once you upgrade it a couple times, get the Guardian Potion ++, and it makes you invulnerable for like 2 minutes or something like that. So you can also wear the Potion Medal to make it last longer. So that's super awesome, in particular for the last boss of the game. It doesn't really matter so much in the regular game, but in hero mode in particular, he does something like 4 hearts of damage per hit or more, I think, in the second phase, so he hits really hard. So he only has to hit you a couple times and he'll wipe out all your life, especially if you only have like half the hearts. It's awful. If you have like 10 hearts or something and then he's hitting you like that, it's like you have to use a potion like every other hit. It's horrible. So anyway, especially in hero mode, the final boss is kind of rough if you don't have a Guardian Potion. Now, that's all up to you to decide what you want to do. Now, otherwise, the other potion of interest that we have here is the Stamina Potion. So if you upgrade that to the Stamina Potion Plus, it gives you infinite stamina for the duration. So it's very useful for one of the other boss battles, which will make sense once we get to that. The final potion that you want to look at is definitely the Heart Potion Plus Plus. So a regular Heart Potion heals you, I believe it's 8 hearts or something, and then if you upgrade it, it heals you completely. If you upgrade it again, it can heal you completely twice. You can get 2 uses out of it, and it's awesome. So that's all great. Now, the thing to think about with that, too, is you can't use it when you're obviously all the way dead. We have 18 hearts at this point, so say you use it when you get down to 2 or 3 hearts. That means you're healing about 16 hearts. So if you can use it twice, that means it's 32 life of extra, like extending your health pool, which is actually kind of nuts. So if you have 4 potions all filled up with Heart Potion Plus Plus, you get a lot of healing, a lot of healing. So something, another comment about that, as long as we're discussing it, like you might be asking me like, wow, why wouldn't you use the life medal? Life medals are awesome; they increase your life. But here's the thing, like, sure, you increase your life by 1, and then it makes your heart potions go a little further, but it only increases it by 1 heart. So if you take both healings into account, then increases it by 1 more. So instead of 32, you're increasing it to 34 healing total per heart potion total. But at the same time, you could just have those slots. Instead of having a life medal, you could just have another Heart Potion Plus Plus. Like, it is so much more superior. I can't even, like, why would you even consider 1 heart or 2 hearts if you want to count the healing? Or actually, I guess 3 hearts total, because you started out with 1 heart, then you got damaged and healed, and then you healed again. So I guess 3 hearts, whatever. Each slot gives you an equivalent of 3 hearts, but each slot of the Heart Potion Plus Plus gives you 32 life. It's crazy. Like, it's not even a comparison. 3 life versus 32 is just insane. So let me break that down for you in case I wasn't clear enough. What I'm trying to say is that life medals are garbage. At least compared to bottles anyway. They're just like, bottles are so much superior. It's just crazy. There's no comparison. And I guess it kind of depends maybe on how much you've collected so far, so what items you have available. Like for me, I've collected everything in the entire game, except for Sky Stag Beetles, apparently. I don't know how I managed that. I guess I didn't collect that first one at the very beginning of the game that Gully was messing with outside those trees when we were doing the rolling tutorial, but that is actually the best place to get them. You can get them here in Skyloft at those same trees where Gully was rolling around and messing with the trees. So you can find them there. We recommend that you actually just sneak up on them and use the bug catching. I think you can just roll into them to make them fall. Yeah, you can roll into the trees to make them fall down. So that's one way. So that's one location they're at. The next easiest, probably the easiest place, honestly, is on the side of the Knight Academy. So that's next to the lower entrance, that wall off to the left, there is, on the side of the Knights Academy itself, there is a Sky Stag Beetle there. Now, as far as the chance for them to be there, I think it's like 33% chance or 25% chance for them to be there, something like that. and it actually just refreshes every time you go in and out of the door. So if you just go in and out of the door of the Knights Academy repeatedly, you'll probably find bugs. So that's what you can do if you are needing a Sky Stag Beetle. So at this point, I actually left the bazaar, and then I researched online, and then I checked in Skyloft, and then I ran back into the bazaar, and then I recorded myself leaving so I started the recording up again as I was leaving Skyloft. So there's actually a chunk of time of me just wandering around Skyloft trying to find Sky Stag Beetles that I'm not actually showing in this recording. But anyways, what I found online when I paused to go research was that there was some forum posts of people asking the same question: where do I find Sky Stag Beetles? And other Zelda fans helping that person out. And so that's where I got this information, then I confirmed it and was like, all right, sweet. And then I started the recording up again. And I think it's awesome that people helping each other out, and the Zelda community coming together and stuff is sweet. I think that's really cool and admirable and stuff like that, and I would totally do that too. The one thing I would comment on, though, is there was a bunch of different bug guides online. However, the bug guides just had information. They just said what the description was of the bug when you first find it, and that was it. That was the end of the bug guide. It just had that for every single bug. There's multiple websites that had that, and I just think that's really sad, because the only reason people would be looking at a guide like that is to find the bugs. People aren't looking at it. I mean, nobody cares about the lore description, let's be honest. I mean, there's some kinds of lore that people care about. Bug lore, people don't care about. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen. So this is me putting out a general plea to the public at large to please edit wikis. If you have some information that's helpful and there's nothing there, just add. If you can't find it anymore on the internet, but you kind of figure out something, then please just make an account real quick, or with your email or whatever you got to do, and then just edit it real quick. Because honestly, if we can get, in particular for Zelda, the way I figure it is, if we can get say 3,000 people just doing it in general. Oh, by the way, so here's this windmill. I think there's usually a Sky Stag Beetle against this as well. I've heard that online. I haven't actually seen that one myself, but supposedly that's another great place for that. Anyways, what I was saying is, if we could get say 3,000 or 5,000 Zelda fans, or even 10,000 Zelda fans, just in general worldwide, that are making slight edits to the wikis in general, not all the time, not even doing tons of edits, you do 2 or 3. If we have 10,000 people that each do 2 edits and just add a sentence, I often found near this, mushrooms are often found near Mount Satori in Breath of the Wild. Bam, done. That's your edit. And not a lot of work. You didn't put in a lot of effort to it. But you know what? The next time somebody else is looking for that Sky Stag Beetle and they don't know where to go, now there's something there for them. They can go, oh, sure enough, it's there. And it might seem like a little thing to you, just a little bit of effort, but you saved, several hundred people a lot of trouble, and so they don't have to go through the same thing that you did. So I don't know. It's just the way I figure it is, if all of us are scratching each other's backs, we can make some wikis that are actually awesome and actually helpful. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily usually do that myself, and my reasoning for it is actually because I could spend that same time doing a whole walkthrough. You know what I mean? I can work on the next project, which is what people are. I don't know. It's sort of it's almost doing a disservice to my fans if I'm spending a lot of time on a wiki on some other website as opposed to working on my YouTube videos. You know what I mean? So that's my reasoning for that, is that if I'm going to be doing guidey things, for me anyways, it makes more sense for me to doing that. I do edit wikis occasionally, though. I think the last game I really dived in and did that for a little bit was Sublevel 0, which is a 6 Degrees of Freedom flying game, and I played that a couple years ago, and I was just irritated at the lack of information online. So I kind of gathered up some information real quick and just typed up some stuff, and then I made this little grid. It's pretty cool. I think I'll show it at the end of this instead of showing a regular highlight, just to rant about it a little bit and explain kind of what I'm talking about. Part of my reasoning for saying that is I feel like my approach is different than other people's. Part of that is just because I write walkthroughs all the time, so I'm used to thinking in those terms. All right, I'm feeling pretty happy with this adventure pouch. I feel like it's pretty optimized. The large bomb bag is probably the most optional thing if I was going to drop something. I guess I just replace it with a potion at this point. And again, life medals are garbage. I cannot express that enough. And I do have 2 heart potions. 2 heart potion pluses. Blech. And each one of those will heal me completely twice, so I can heal myself completely 4 times, which that's a pretty good amount of healing, plus an invincibility potion and a infinite stamina potion. So that's pretty awesome. So I have a pretty good amount of stuff now that I can afford. So here I was just messing around with the pumpkin. I actually didn't realize that pumpkins float. So I got all excited real quick right here. I was wow, look at that, look at that. Anyways, now the next thing I want to point out is at the beginning of the game, when we were heading over to the waterfall cave, there was actually a character named Rusta over here. He's the same guy who was in the Lumpy Pumpkin talking about Batro. Could have optionally talked with him during that quest. But anyways, Rusta is here and he's inspecting the statue, and he says that it's sad that the statue is missing one of its eyes. And so he talks about it for a little while. And the reason they have him there to talk about that is hopefully to give you a little reminder here, so when you saw the Stone of Trials, that you would remember this statue, which I think is really vague. I don't think that Fi even has a dowsing option for it or anything either. You can talk with her and she'll give you a clue. She's just like, search around Skyloft for a gem like this, and it's super vague. You're like, what is that supposed to mean? So they're hoping you just wander around and find this thing. But otherwise, you can also talk with the fortune teller in town, or inspect one of the nearby gossip stones next to the training hall to get a movie about showing you where to go next. Or, just watch this video because it's even better. I like the way you think. So this unveils the final dungeon of the game, which is Sky Keep, and honestly, I think this is probably one of my favorite final dungeons in the Zelda series. It's an interesting concept, so I just think it's kind of fun just because it's unique and stuff, but I also just really like that it utilizes a lot of previous mechanics. So we've already done a lot of this kind of thing, these kind of puzzles, but now we're just doing it a little more extreme. So there's some enemies that are in your way, and you need to fight your way past them, and they're a pretty hard combination. There's like puzzles that are kind of tricky, or like a harder version of some stuff you've already faced before. So it's just like a kind of an epic version of all the stuff we've already done, like all of it for the whole game. It's just a nice like roundup like thing of all that stuff with lots of really interesting puzzles, and I just think that's cool. Like that's awesome. And there's even like times where you're using items that you wouldn't normally use. Or, like there's actually, I guess I should explain. There's different rooms that are themed after different parts of the dungeon, after the different dungeons we've done before, and you use items within those rooms that aren't associated with that particular dungeon type. You know what I mean? Like things in the linear mining facility room that you didn't have at that point. So I just think that's cool because it's like we're using all the items in our tool belt and we're using them in different situations, and you have to think outside the box a little bit. And it's like a culmination of all the types of puzzles we've done so far. It's just awesome. I also just think it's like a really good balance of like combat situations versus puzzles and stuff like that. It's just good. And I think they just handled all this stuff really well. Even though they're using old elements from previous dungeons, it's lore-wise it makes sense. It's just really good. I think they handled this dungeon really well, and I think it's a really great like way of like summarizing our whole experience of the game, and now we have this epic challenge. I just think it's great. I wish more Zelda games did this. Anyways, that's the end of this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching. As always, have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys next time. So rather than a traditional highlight, I figured I'd talk about the Moonlight Merchant, because I didn't really have a good place to talk about it in the video. And I also did this after, I went back and recorded this after I completed the game, so that's what this clip is, and that's why my batteries are dead. Anyways, after completing the Skyview Silent Realm, then you have access to this Gossip Stone, and it's partway through the Waterfall Cave, which is that cave where we like went through to go find our Loftwing at the very beginning of the game. Partway through, you'll find some butterflies there. They're only available after you complete the Skyloft Silent Realm. By the way, there is some confusion online that some people think it's after helping Batro, and that's not the case. The deal is, after helping Batro and completing all the Gratitude Crystal side quests, then there's no enemies inside the Waterfall Cave. Completely separate thing, completely unrelated. So completing the Skyloft Silent Realm is what will gain you access to the Moonlight Merchant. So, what the Moonlight Merchant does is it allows you to purchase treasure for a hefty amount of rupees. Now, the nice thing about this merchant is it does have just different dialogue boxes to choose other treasures, which is really nice. So as opposed to like selling treasures to Rupin, whom you have to speak with him on different nights to gain access to the ability to sell different treasures, the Moonlight Merchant, you can just switch through different dialogue boxes, and when you select one, it costs you money, and then you get a chest nearby where you can grab the treasure. Now, unfortunately, you cannot buy multiple treasures at once, but still, this is very useful in particular for getting some of the rare treasures. So if you'd like to purchase more than one, all you have to do is just leave the cave and come back to make this chest disappear so that you can speak with the Moonlight Merchant again. But yeah, this is only available at the end of the game after you have completed the Skyloft Silent Realm. And in case it wasn't obvious from the name, by the way, the Moonlight Merchant is only available at night, so if you enter the Waterfall Cave during the day, you will not find this Gossip Stone. This does work out pretty great because at the end of the game you have so many rupees. It's very easy to get 500 rupees in a very short period of time, so you can easily buy whatever you're missing, so that way you can finish up all the upgrades and go on to the scrap shop. So that's the end of this video, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Join me for the next one where we'll continue on with Sky Keep.